Hey everyone, welcome to Snap Take. Over the next week, starting Monday, twice a day, we're going to be revealing my top 10 cards on Marvel Snap. I think these are the 10 best cards in Snap. Before we take a look at what criteria we're going to be using to determine the 10 very best, I need you to stop. I need you to go follow us on Twitter. Now, over on our Twitter, this is your last chance to win one of two season passes for next season that we are giving away tonight, Friday night, March 31st. All you have to do is be subscribed here, follow on Twitter, and comment on one specific post. That post, if you don't want to go looking, will be linked in the show notes right below this video. All you have to do is go comment, and what you're commenting is your favorite thing about the Marvel Snap community. We're trying to build positivity, partially in honor of our last Snap Judgments podcast episode, which was our positivity episode, and partially because this community deserves more positivity and more joy. Now, okay, here's the criteria I'm using when looking at my top 10 cards. First, I want a card that is good both if you unlock it early, pull 3. There is all of one pull 2 card here. I want a card that is useful early in your Marvel Snap journey as you're traveling through pull 3, and that is useful and has multiple endgame builds. And I want multiple endgame builds. I don't want just one deck unless they are that deck. For example, I'm not saying he's here, not saying he's not, but Galactus would be a card where, like, there's multiple builds, kind of, but they're all sort of doing the same general Galactus-y thing. We're going to look at the top 10 cards. We're going to release 2 a day starting Monday. We're going to do the first one today. We're going to do one Tuesday because we also have to talk Hitmonkey. And then every other day of next week, we're going to do 2 different numbers of the top 10. So here, as you can see, we have number 10. Number 10 is our friend Wave. Wave is phenomenal. Her text reads, um, her text reads 3/3 on reveal. Next turn, cards in both players' hands cost 4. That's fantastic. It's fantastic in that it ramps and it lets you cheat out cards. It's a um, ramp that works for both players, so it can have downside in that way. But you've built your deck for it, your opponent hasn't. The other reason that's awesome is there's several cards that let you cheat when you play Wave. If you cheat when you play Wave, you can play multiple cards on turn 6 or 7 if you're playing Magic as well, whereas they can only play one because their specific decks aren't built around it. I want to take a look at 3 different decks throughout our Marvel Snap journey that you can play using Wave. Now, early pull 3, if you get Wave nice and early, the deck you most want to play it, the card in is Death Wave. And this is my very early pull 3 Death Wave version. It's only running 2 pull 3 and up cards. If you unlock these 2 relatively quickly, please go for this deck. However, you absolutely need these 2 cards. There are no exceptions for having Wave and having Death. The early game package is just killing stuff. Cool? This all makes perfect sense to everyone, right? Like, you play Bucky, you drop Carnage on it. Yondu counts as a destroy. Squirrel Girl and Killmonger is an awful lot of destroys. Deathlock kills Bucky, so on and so forth. That everything except Wave on that first row and Deathlock are your destroy package. Their job is to make death cheaper. Now, you can kill 20 things if you really want to, but for death, at least in this version, all you really need to do is kill 4. Now, I'm going to straight up say this right away. Once you get She-Hulk, She-Hulk badly wants to be in this deck, likely with the first replacement being Spider-Woman, and at that point, killing 4 things has extra value because that'll make death free on that last turn. So, Wave is not a turn 3 play in this deck. Wave is a turn 5 play. On turn 5, you play Wave, and as long as you've killed 2 things, Death goes down to 4, loses 2 more, goes down to 2, and you can play Death along with basically guaranteed an America Chavez or a Spider-Woman, Iron Man, or Shang-Chi. Iron Man is what I played when I first got this deck and didn't have all the hyper competitive cards. I didn't have Arrow. Arrow was a fixture. Arrow goes in this deck as soon as you get her. I played Iron Man. I played Iron Man because Bucky and Carnage is 10 power. If I can double that on the last turn and drop 12 elsewhere, I'm usually winning the game, especially early pull 3. You could also potentially drop Jeth and Shang, the big thing they played on turn 5. That thing will very often be a Red Skull in the current meta. And Spider Woman is just a nice stat stick with some extra utility of lowering some power. That's what the deck is. Again, the only cards you really want to change, even in late game, you would like Iron Man to stick around after Spider Woman, but you want them to be She Hulk and Arrow. Arrow, even with the nerf, after Wave, they can only play one card. Pulling one card is great. A bit later in your pool 3 journey, you can switch to something like this. This one has 4 pool 3 cards. It kind of needs all 4, though. So, the trick is that you want to grab priority here. You just want to play big stuff and get on the board and make your opponent stop you. Once your opponent is trying to stop you, you're again waving on 5. You're waving on 5 into She-Hulk, who now costs 2, and Doom if you need to spread power out, or Arrow if you want to control where the one card they can play goes. Nice and simple. You can also, of course, again, always Shang-Chi. Your goal here is to play a nice curve of Sunspot into something like Lizard, into something like Fantastic, into something like White Queen to make sure you're going first, maintaining priority, and taking over that game. Here's, the excess cards are Nightcrawler to help you reach locations you couldn't otherwise, and Scorpion to, again, it ends up often being like a 2/5, 2/6 based on its ability. The trick here is that White Queen gives you a lot of extra power in this deck. She seems kind of suspicious, right? Like she doesn't feel like she does a whole lot. But if you've got She-Hulk, she means you don't necessarily have to play America. She tells you if your opponent can abuse that turn 5 wave, so maybe you don't want to do it. She can often give you something like a Doom, something to do on that last turn. That information in this deck is especially invaluable. Now, the late game wave deck for me is Galactus. To me, if you want to hit infinite, the easiest and most straightforward way is Galactus. Galactus takes some practice. Galactus is extremely effective, but he is also extremely expensive. This deck runs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pull 3 cards, while it runs 1, 2 pull 4, and of course, the big guy in pull 5. I'm not going to go over how to play every play pattern with this deck. That's not what this video is for. The wave play pattern, however, is fundamentally you will wave on 3, you will Galactus on 4, and then you have one of 2 plays. Play 1, ideal play, is Spider-Man on 5. Spider-Man on 5 locks up that lane. Once that lane is locked up, you immediately know whether you can win or lose. Odds are they run, so hopefully you snap before, but that is an automatic 2 cubes the majority of the time. The other play is Dr. Octopus. You can fill that lane before they're ready, and then you have the opportunity to drop a null or a death. You know, again, exactly about whether you can contest that lane, you snap before playing Doc Ock, or whether you're running, and your opponent has to respect that you have null, who could be like 40, 60 power, and they have to respect that you could have Shang-Chi if they have a bunch of big things there, and there's very little that can be done about that. These are, however, not the only decks Wave is good in. Wave is suddenly a regular piece in the modern Hela decks. In addition to the Invisible Woman package that's very obvious in these decks, they now run a Magic into Wave and Psylocke package on turn 5 and 6, and then on turn 7, you can play MODOK immediately into Hela. That's extremely strong. There's also quite a few Thanos builds that run Wave. We're going to be looking at one with Savage Yeti coming soon, so keep an eye on Savage Yeti Gaming's YouTube channel if you haven't yet. All right, that is, to me, at the very least, the number 10 card in the game. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you check out the rest of the list of the top 10 cards in Marvel Snap, at least in my perspective, with me looking at stats and thinking about what decks the cards fit in. If you enjoyed this video, please like and sub, but make sure you go enter on Twitter the contest. All you have to do is click the link in the description below. Do so. I'll see you all Monday. Have a wonderful weekend.